How's it going, everybody? Today we're checking out the Hisense U8K. This is Hisense's best TV offering of the year other than the Hisense UX. But the Hisense UX only comes in an 85-inch screen size, and the Hisense U8K comes in a 55-inch, 65-inch, 75-inch, 85-inch, and 100-inch screen size. And at 100 inches, it happens to be one of the better values out there in the 100-inch screen size. Now, this TV that I'm checking out right now is a 65-inch TV. It was gifted to me by Hisense, so thank you to Hisense for sending over this TV, but they do not have any input on what I'm saying in this video. Before I get into my first impressions, I do want to walk you guys through the settings a little bit, and then I want to walk you through game mode, and then we'll talk about the actual picture quality and my overall impressions of the TV. So here's a recording of me going through the settings and talking about the different settings that are available to you with the Hisense U8K. All right, so let's go through the picture options here. I'm going to show you what it looks like out of the box. It's going to be in the auto picture mode. I have switched it out, but I wanted to show you HDR standard, and that's going to have the automatic light sensor on. You're going to want to also switch off the automatic light sensor for pretty much every mode if you don't want it on. For example, filmmaker mode has it on. As soon as you remove it, you can see how much brighter the TV gets. And the difference between HDR vivid and filmmaker mode brightness isn't large, honestly. It's just like some little things that the processing is doing with the picture quality that is honestly kind of a detriment to the picture quality, in my opinion. I think some people like this, but others might prefer the way this looks because the face pops out more than the actual like greenery in the background, where this one is just like way too green. So that's just a preference thing, and you guys will find that as well. Brightness is all controllable here. Dark detail is just your shadow detail. Active contrast is going to be kind of like your contrast enhancer. Dynamic tone mapping, some people like it, some people don't like it. It's one of those preference settings I think you're going to want to try out. And then local dimming on low, medium, and high. I typically say leave it on high when you're watching HDR. Other than picture modes, I think that's pretty set there. I mean, you do have the super resolution, which I'm going to dive into more and see if I can see a difference between it's on by default, but I'll go ahead and test that later. Smooth gradation. This can get rid of some of the banding noise created. If you want to further manipulate the white balance, you do have the ability to do that, and all these different calibration controls there at your disposal if you want to use them. Completely up to you. I will not be using them. Man, this picture quality is pretty fantastic. I'm going to go further on and talk about it in the video, but that's just my overall settings walkthrough. All right, let's go back to me. So I want to get into some of my thoughts about this TV so far. And first thing I want to say is that when I'm checking out a TV, I look at it as it is. And I look at the price and I look at where it is in the market and how it compares to other TVs within that price range, and I judge it off of that. I'm not going to judge it on if it's going to be better than some of the flagship TVs out there that are double the price of this TV. That's just not going to be a fair way to do it. So when I'm looking at this TV, I have to think about how it compares to previous models from Hisense. And I have to say, I am much more impressed with the U8K than I was with the U8H. And one of the biggest improvements that I noticed with the U8K over previous models like the U8H is the black levels. I feel like the black levels are much better, and I have a better sense of contrast with this TV. It looks like competing mini LED TVs at a higher level. It really does. It just does not have the same amount of processing as those top end TVs, but it is really, really a bright TV and a special TV to look at when you're watching movies on this TV. And one of the biggest reasons for that is because they have more local dimming zones than ever before. So really good improvements all across the board on the U8K compared to the U8H last year. And when it comes to watching movies, a lot of people are going to ask about the black bars, which I did comment on with the U8H. I was not a big fan of this issue where the black bars were a little bit lifted with the U8H. This is not a problem with the U8K. They've done a big improvement. Now, while it's not going to be perfect, no mini LED TV will be perfect with black bars. It's just how it's going to be. You will never get to the level of an OLED TV in that regard. But if you look at all the other mini LED TVs out there, this one is performing up there with those TVs in this regard with the black bars in mind. So I'm very impressed with that side of things. Since we're on the topic of other brands' TVs, sometimes you have to choose between HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision, but with this TV, you actually get HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision. So really with the HDR formats, you don't have to worry about either of those things. Now, in terms of which one you should use, that's probably going to come down to how you want to use the TV and your preference. I think it is really nice for consumers to have the option to use either HDR10 Plus or Dolby Vision and not have to choose between either. But in reality, they're going to look very similar regardless of what format you pick for your HDR format. One thing I want to mention before we move on to the gaming section is the setup process and the sound. So first of all, the setup process of this TV was very easy and pretty much your standard Google TV OS interface walkthrough. Now, I do want to note that in other regions, you might not have Google OS on your Hisense U8. So just remember that this is just the US model that I'm talking about here, and other regions might have a different OS. Now, I'd be doing a lot of you guys a disservice if I didn't mention this, but the sound quality of this TV for the price is some of the best that you can get. So if you're somebody that's looking at this TV and wondering, can I use the TV sound? You absolutely could. Is it something that I recommend doing? Sometimes I say, yeah, you should definitely get a soundbar with your TVs. In this case, if you're in a small room, this might be good enough for you. So I do like the TV sound a lot, and I just wanted to mention that because it is worth talking about. All right, let's jump into game mode. And one of the things I want to highlight straight off the bat is going to be this game bar function. And something unique with the Hisense game bar is going to be the option to have the FPS displayed the whole time, even when you have the menu down. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I have never seen this in a TV from any TV brand where you can see your frame rate in the top left corner the whole time without having the menu up. Yes, there has been options where you can see your frame rate if you have the menu pulled up for the game bar, but if you enable the FPS counter the whole time, you will just see it even when the game bar is off. So I thought that was a really cool feature. Another interesting thing is that you can actually force 21:9 or 32:9, and you don't have to be using a PC to do this. You can be using any console and you can do this, but it does distort the image. So it's not something I recommend doing, but I did want to highlight how unique this is because I've never seen it on any other TV so far. Sure, there's been the ability to have 21:9 and 32:9 via the game mode, but you have to be using a PC that supports these kind of resolutions. Xbox and PlayStation, they don't support this, but you can actually just force your signal into 21:9 or 32:9. Again, I don't recommend doing this. I just thought it was a really unique thing and I wanted to mention it. The other thing I wanted to mention was the ability to have Dolby Vision game mode. So far, this is something you don't see on a lot of TVs, and it's not something that is complete or something you absolutely need on your TV, but I did want to make sure I mention it as a feature that is available on the Hisense U8K. The other thing I want to mention is that you do have the ability to do 1080p at 240 Hz on this TV. Really cool feature if you're going to be playing any old school games and you just want a high refresh rate whenever you do that on your PC. Anybody still play Counter-Strike? So it's got a lot of unique features and a lot of bells and whistles that a lot of TVs might not have within this price bracket. So yeah, it's really cool to see Hisense implementing these features on their TVs. But is it going to be good picture quality at the end of the day on the Hisense U8K when it comes down to gaming? Now, I don't know if you guys remember this, but I did review the Hisense U8G, and one of the biggest complaints that I had was gaming. And I think they've made such an improvement since the U8G. The U8G had problems with inverse ghosting and some HDR issues. So inverse ghosting was when you saw your character in motion, you saw a green trail or a purple trail, much like a ghosting trail, except for it's just not going to be white. Now, this is definitely fixed with the Hisense U8K as far as I can see. I've even zoomed in on my footage that I took, and I saw no trails that looked like inverse ghosting. And I'm very happy to report that this doesn't seem to be an issue with the Hisense U8K. Now, if I'm wrong, please correct me in the comments, but it's not something that I noticed within my testing. Another issue that I had with the U8G was the way that the colors would look at times in HDR for game mode. With the Hisense U8K, this doesn't appear to be an issue at all anymore, so I'm very happy to report that as well. I thought that the picture quality in game mode was absolutely fantastic, and while it might not be the best looking game mode out there, it still does look very good. And it performed very good as well. Very low input lag and really good responsiveness. So I do think that I can recommend this TV as a gaming TV at this price bracket. You have the ability to do 4K 144 Hz, and you have 4 HDMI ports available to you, including 2 HDMI 2.1 ports. The Hisense U8K really does tick most of the boxes in regards to gaming. This is one of the biggest improvements I've seen from a TV manufacturer from year to year, so it's clear you can see that Hisense is listening to its consumers, which is a great thing to see. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys are wondering what is the biggest negative with this TV, and by far, in my opinion, the biggest negative with this TV is going to be the viewing angles. The viewing angles on this TV are not very good, so if you're watching it from the side or if you have people watching it from the side, it's going to be one that is going to have a less desirable picture than when you're watching it straight on. And that's just how most of the TVs are going to be at this price bracket. To be honest with you, not many TVs offer great viewing angles at this price range. If you want great viewing angles, you have to go with an OLED TV. But you're not going to find an OLED TV within this price range, so you have to be reasonable about that. Overall, my first impressions with this TV are pretty good, and I think that there's more positives to go off of than negatives this year, and that's a good change for Hisense because I have been very critical of Hisense in the past, but I do think they're getting much better every year, and this year they made a big step up, especially when it comes down to gaming. I would say if most people can't get into the OLED TV market, I think this is one of the TVs that you'll have to strongly consider. And yeah, while it's true you can get slightly better picture quality at a higher price bracket in a mini LED TV, you're not going to see a huge improvement. So the gains aren't really going to be there for the price. That's why I really like the U8K as a value right now. Hisense has really stepped it up. Now, overall, I think that most people that buy this TV will be very impressed with the picture quality, and it's hard to complain about very many things, especially at this price point. When it comes down to the U8K, this is one of the best values that is available in TVs today. So that was my first impressions on the Hisense U8K. If you have any comments or questions about this TV, make sure you leave them down below. And if you want to see more videos from me, be sure to subscribe to the channel and consider checking out one of these videos on the screen right now. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.